What? What? Oh, Abishag. Yes, you're catching me right at the end of my ritual. Yes, let me put down my water. I know what you're here for. I've gotten used to it now. You want the story again. Let me set down my water. The only reason I tell you my story is because Bathsheba's right. The more I tell the story, the easier it gets. Why don't you sit down and get comfortable? I have but a few more minutes in my ritual to wear my sackcloth upon my head. It itches me worse every hour, but I've committed to wear it an hour every day to remember the injustice. And you remember the story, the sackcloth signifying injustice. It goes back as far back as we can remember. The itchy, uncomfortable reminder that something has been wrong, that an injustice needs to be made right, and that even Rizpah, if you've heard her story, and I'm sure you have, she spread sackcloth across the rock when she was out defending the bodies of the dead, calling for justice for them, calling for their rightful burial. Rizpah used sackcloth to call attention to the injustice. And not that anyone would see the injustice done to me anymore, but for me to remember the injustice, to remember that injustice reigns in this household. Someday it will be made right. I know it will be made right. But now I wear the sackcloth upon my head. I place my hand upon my head. There were no more ashes for me to sprinkle this day, but could I have found some, had the priest let me come near the altar, I would have taken those ashes of the innocent blood slain for sin. I would have taken those ashes and sprinkled those upon my head. I would have remembered again and again. And so where do you want me to start this time, Abishag? At the beginning. Of course you want me to start at the beginning. Yes. And one day I will be healed of this wound, for I know God, my Savior, is going to heal me and avenge me. But now I can only remember back to a time when I was free, when I was young, when I was innocent, when I believed all things, hoped all things, lived for all things. And I wore my beautiful gown of many colors, as all the virgin daughters of the king wore. And it was a wonderful thing to be so beautifully attired and to be known to be a virgin daughter of the king. Maybe the gown of many colors was given to us because it was easier to keep track of us. For, of course, as a virgin, we were watched and guarded carefully, that no evil should befall us. And I was young and beautiful and innocent. And once I remember being in the company of the family, and all the brothers were there and all the sisters were there. And I remember it was a good time, and we loved one another, and we laughed with one another, and our joy was so full. It was a wonderful time. It was before any calamity befell, we children at least, for Father had his calamity. As everyone knows, King David has not been perfect, and the consequences have fallen upon us all. But this was before the children had the consequences. And then it happened. My father's firstborn son, by Ahinoam, his second wife, his son Amnon, the one who would become king after David, relinquished his reign. Amnon, the spoiled prince. Amnon, we didn't know then, but he was talking to our cousin Jobab, and he was telling him how he was lovesick for me, but he couldn't have me, but he didn't know what he was going to do. He was wasting away. He didn't even want to eat. He was getting thinner and thinner and weaker and weaker. And Jobab said, I have an idea. Jobab was a very cunning person and still is to this day. And he told Amnon, I know what you should do. You should pretend like you're sick. And then you should ask the king to let your sister come in and make you cakes and feed them to you with her very hand, and then you will be made well. That was the plan. And so Amnon feigned his illness, but since he had been losing weight and looking weaker, it was easy for the king to believe he was sick. The king went into him, and Father David said, Oh, my son, what must we do to make you well and strong once again? And brother said, Oh, I think that Sister Tamar makes the best cakes, and I think that if she could just come and make the cakes for me right here where they would be fresh, and I could see her doing that. I think that if she fed me those cakes with her bare hands, that the strength and life and youth of Sister Tamar would come into me, and I would be made strong once again. It sounded good to Father. He agreed to indulge the spoiled prince once again, and so he came to me, and he sent me to my brother's home. I went in, and the servants were there, and they helped me with preparations and measurements and getting the items that I needed to make the cakes for my brother. And I too was worried over him, for you could tell he was sickly. And I made the cakes. I made them with love. The ingredients I mixed together, even with my hands, that love would go into the food. For we know that as we prepare the food for those we love, we put our love into it, and they receive our love, and our health and our strength is passed on. And so I made the cakes before him, and I put them on a plate, and as I did, he sent everyone out of the room. Well, I was never to be alone with any man, not even a brother. But because he was sickly and weak, and everyone wanted to indulge his privacy, that he would be able to eat without embarrassment, everyone left the room. I came to him with the plate of cakes, wanting so much for his healing, for his health to spring back. Oh, had I known what would happen, I would never have gone forward. As I presented the cakes to him, he grabbed onto me and he wouldn't let me go. He wasn't interested in the cakes. The cakes fell to the ground. He had more strength than anyone thought. I could not get released from him. I said, Brother, don't do this. He pulled me toward him like a man pulls his wife toward him. And I said, Brother, do not do this abomination. He could not be dissuaded. He continued and continued. I said, Brother, please, you know Father will not deny you anything. Ask him, and he will give me to you in marriage. But don't do this detestable thing. It's not heard of in the land. It is against the law of God. But Amnon would not cease. He continued to pull me toward him, and I continued to cry out, but no one would hear me. No one would come to me. Amnon forced himself upon me. Then he suddenly turned, and with more than the love that he had for me, he had more hate for me. He hated me more than he had loved me. He reviled me. He took me physically, and he threw me out the door. I said, brother, don't do this. This is a worse abomination than the other. Don't reject me like this. You have taken me. Now, the law says that if you take a woman's virginity, that she is to become your wife. That's what the law says. Father cannot deny that now. It has happened. According to your will, Amnon. But Amnon reviled me even worse. He pushed me and shoved me through that threshold. He got me on the outside of the door. He slammed and locked the door. He guarded it and he would not let me in. I banged on the door. Amnon, Amnon, let me in, let me in. He said, go away, I hate you. Amnon, Amnon, don't do this, let me in. He would not. I tore my beautiful virgin garment of many colors. I tore it into shreds. I went to the nearest fire and I gathered up the ashes and I poured them on my head. I put my hand on my head and I walked back toward my quarters. My brother Absalom, my full brother, for Amnon was my half-brother. We had the same father, but not the same mother. But Absalom and I, our mother's name is Maacah. Maacah had birthed me and my brother. My brother was older. He was stronger. He was beautiful. His hair was so thick and beautiful. Every year, at the end of the season, he cut his hair, and it weighed between 4 and 5 pounds, just what he cut off from one year. It was beautiful long hair, but it was so heavy and so long, he had to cut it every year. He was a beautiful man. And he saw me with my hand upon my ash-covered head, and he saw my garments ripped, and he knew what had happened, because he knew that I was sent to my brother Amnon to make the cakes, to serve him and make him well. Absalom said, has Amnon done something to you? Oh, all I could do is just hang my head in shame. Why should I be ashamed? He said. He's your brother. He did this to you. You shouldn't be ashamed, he told me. But that's not what I wanted to hear. I wanted someone to hold me and tell me I had been wronged. That yes, it was a shame. I wanted someone to take up the fight for me. That this injustice should be made right. I wanted someone to acknowledge that I was hurt and in pain. And instead, brother Absalom said, take your hand off your head, wash the ashes away, wash yourself and get on a new garment. Say nothing, don't tell anyone. I had to wonder, was he trying to protect our family name? What was he trying to do? Perhaps he was trying to protect me, for a woman so abused would not be welcome as a bride to any man, anywhere. But how could I cease from sobbing? My cries were heard all the way home. Everyone in the palace got word of it. Absalom went to father, and he told him of what had happened. Father was so very angry. But I continued to weep and to cry, and nothing happened. Absalom waited for justice for his sister, but nothing happened. Amnon was treated again like the spoiled prince. Father did nothing. Nothing. We waited and cried and begged. I was no longer welcome with the virgins in the household, for I was no longer a virgin. My brother Absalom took me into his house. He had already had 3 sons. He had a good wife. And there I remained desolate. 2 years went by. No justice, no sign of justice. Father's anger had been abated, and he was happy with Amnon once again. It was as if nothing had ever happened, except for me and for Absalom. Absalom decided to take things into his own hands. So he made a plan within himself, and he told his men, his servant men, I'm going to have a feast at the end of the shearing that will resolve this issue. It was common to have a feast at the end of the sheep shearing. That was a celebration. And Absalom had the sheep shearing miles away, and he invited the king and all the king's sons to come. And the king declined. He said, oh no, I really don't want to come. There's no point. I don't usually come to your sheep shearing festivities. I really don't want to come. You just go ahead and have it with you and your men. They're the ones who have done all the work, and they're the ones who should have the party. But Absalom persisted, and he said, well, if you won't come, Father, then send my brother Amnon and my other brothers. Well, of course it made sense to send Amnon because he was the heir elect. He would be the one who took Father's place as the next king. So of course brothers would want to honor the one who would be the next king, and to have all the other brothers there also. So all the brothers were given permission to go with Absalom to the sheep shearing festivities. When the labor was done and the party was thrown, the instructions had been given. Absalom had told his men, when Amnon is full of wine, heavy with drink, then I will cry out that you should fall upon him and kill him. You may wonder how I could rejoice at such a thought. I don't know. But when I heard news that it came to pass just that way, it didn't ease things for the injustice, but it did settle an issue. I did not have to see the man rewarded. And so Amnon was dead. All the other princes, the sons of David, scattered. They got on their animals and they rode away, fearing that Absalom would kill them also. And word came quickly to David, all of your sons have been slain by Absalom. And King David began to sorrow and weep. He had lost his children. All he had was a murderer who would have to be dealt with. But Jobab, the very one who had told Amnon how to take me and defile me, Jobab was right there with the king. And our cousin said, "Oh, it can't be possible that Absalom has killed all of your sons. He's probably only killed Amnon, because that's who he has a vengeance for." And no sooner had he finished speaking than the sons began to come forth. And all of the sons, except for Amnon and Absalom, returned to the palace to the king. Brother Absalom took flight, and he ran off back to the land where Mother came from. For Mother Maacah was a princess herself. Her father, King Talmari, was in the land of Geshur, and Brother Absalom rode to Geshur, and there he had asylum for 3 years. I remained in his household while he was gone. 3 long years we mourned for Absalom to come back to us. But David's fury was kindled against Absalom for the longest time. And even when he was abated in his fury toward Absalom, he did not know how to bring back a murderer, the murderer of his firstborn son. He did not know how to do it. But Joab was a clever commander, and Joab got a woman from the town of Tekoa to dress up as a mourning woman and to go before the king and to tell this story. She went before the king and she said, "Oh, king, oh, it's terrible what they're doing. My family wants me to surrender my only son, to be killed. And this is how it happened. I'm a widow. My only 2 boys were together and they were fighting, and no one could pry them apart. And they fought until the one killed the other. And now my family says I must surrender the surviving son to be killed for vengeance, the blood vengeance of his brother's death. If I do that, what will I have left? It will be like water spilt upon the ground. I cannot gather it back up again. I will have no sons." And King David, wise as he was, said, "You let me handle this matter. I will say that blood vengeance does not apply in this matter, that your son who had murdered his brother is free to live a life without retribution, free to live with his mother, free of fear. And if anybody troubles you, if anybody harms you, you send them to me and I will make it so." And then the wise woman said, "If you can do that for me, why can't you do that for your own household? For all of Israel mourns the loss of Absalom. Why can't you bring back your own son? If you can do that for my son, why can't you bring back your own son Absalom?" And David, being smart as he was, said, "Has Joab had anything to do with your coming here?" And she confessed it was true, that Joab had given her the words. But she was wise enough to use the words in a way that David could understand. And David told Joab, "You can go get Absalom. How often I wanted to go to Geshur and get him myself. But you can go get him. Only tell him he cannot come before the king. I cannot see his face, but he can go home." And so it was that Joab went to Geshur, and Joab collected Absalom and brought him back home. And back home, Joab made it easy for Absalom to be part of the family, but not to see David. And so he went in and out. In his own home, he and his wife conceived another child, and they bore a daughter. And then they did the sweetest thing. They gave that daughter a name that would give life to me. They gave that daughter the name of Tamar. So now that child is growing, and a beautiful, beautiful child. And I look to her for my life. I look to her for the life I could not live. I look to her to have the life that a princess should have. And so brother Absalom is home. But all is not well. But Abishag, I need to complete my ritual, and I need to go take my cleansing bath now, remove my sackcloth, and remember the goodness of God for the rest of the day until tomorrow morning when I put the sackcloth back on. But for now, if you want to hear more of the stories of Absalom, why don't you go talk to Mother Makkah, and she'll tell you more stories. So, let me get my water, and you continue listening and continue having me tell this story, for I feel better today than I did last time.